Okay, so we're going to get the lines all done. I've already made a bit of a start, just a light sanding, not pushing much weight on this at all, just to take off any little top edges around, and then obviously got the little plugs from the sprue mark there, and just give that a bit of a rub over. And really you want to keep doing it till you don't see the white. Obviously if you're seeing white there's still a raised area, and also you've got obviously the two sides of your file. You can get in there with a rougher one where it needs it. Okay, so we go like that, then we'll come back with our sanding sponge, just pass over that entire area for the moment. If you wet it, it acts like a little bit of wet and dry, you can get in there as well. As I say, then the same on the, if we wet it, you can just clean up any little marks we've left. But so far, as I say, we haven't used any filler on technically quite a difficult join, and certainly these parts down here. Now we probably will have to pop round and rescribe, but that's pretty much a straightforward thing to do. So we'll just get in here. So use your circular motions, however you feel happy with it, but we're just trying to take out anything along there at all. Just sand that off. Right, okay. So here you go. As you can see, it gets rid of that mark. Hope you can see it in there quite nicely. There's not any real problems with it. Now, obviously we've got to take care of the little riveting details on that. We've actually sanded off slightly, and down here these are actually access panels, and because we've sort of filled and sanded away the bottom seam, we're going to have to rescribe that. So if we do that now, so obviously lots of ways to do this. I've talked about this in other tutorials. We're going to use our little template we have here because it's on quite a flat surface. Then what you can do also, just to help things out, if you get a bit of blue tack or your modelling putty and then stick it to your surface like that, it just stops it rolling around and you're trying to keep hold of it and all the rest of it. So what we're going to do, obviously I'm doing this upside down, so wish me luck, but we're going to try and put these lines now back in. Now, because we've gone over with super glue and there's other things in there as well, what you want to do is very, very light passes. So we're just lightly going across like that and putting that panel line in. Now don't go in there too heavy, let it really just the lightest touch and let it do the work. And then what we'll do also, we've just got to carry that down as well to make sure that the panel line meets the one at the bottom. Just like so. And these little touches are what really make the difference, because obviously, you know, I use the wash and you want it, the wash, to make sure it goes absolutely everywhere. So if you've sanded it away and the wash line just stops for no apparent reason, it all looks a bit odd. So the other thing you can do, obviously the rivets, there's different ways you can actually do it. I've got a needle scriber here, it's just got a point on the end, so you could just go up to where obviously the access clasps are and just give it a push, just like that. And what that will do is just obviously squashes any filler that's in there or any dust and anything else. And you can do it. The other way you could do it, of course, is obviously with a pin vise and just make little quarter turns as you go along. But as long as you just give them a little nudge, it will just squash any filler dust in, and it just makes a world of difference when you come to the wash. Now, if you're not going to wash, you probably wouldn't have to worry about this too much, but certainly, knowing me, I'll be busy with me wash and weathering it up, because obviously this one's going to have a bit of a heavy weather type thing. As I say, just work your way. Now the thing is, if you've got to the point where you've perhaps totally sanded off all your rivets and you can't see where they are, then what you can actually do is, where you can, measure them on a ruler and then carry on. You can also buy little spoked wheels and various other bits and pieces, but that's basically that. Right, okay, here we go. This is, as I say, it's all a bit of a learning curve, but we're going to give it a whirl. What we're going to do, we're going to prime with a little bit of Tamiya acrylic neat. Now, why are we doing that instead of just sludging it around with the white as we normally do? What I want to do is just try a few things. So we're going to pour this into the colour cup neat. Okay. We're spraying at a very, very high air pressure, maximum out really, which is about 35 psi. We're going to give this just a quick dusty coat. Try and get it down into the tube, cut into air, and just dry it out. Same with the other one. So what we're going to do, we're just going to plough ahead and get a very good mix. Okay, then what also we're going to do, we're going to take some Tamiya tape, like so. Okay, we're going to pop it on the end, just like that. Flat to the table and pull it up. Flat to the table and pull it up. Like so. And what we'll do, just make sure we've got these ends totally covered. Now we know there's a bit of a gap down there, but there's very little we can do about that. So then all we're going to do, we're going to take our white and we're going to pop it all in there. Lots and lots and lots. Okay, then we're going to work it back out. And we're just going to keep rolling it around in there all over, and we'll let that stand for a bit, let it somewhat dry, then we're going to roll it round again and just keep going and going and going. As you can see, or probably not, it's all looking very white in there. As I say, we'll just keep rolling it around and bring it up to the forefront again, up to the edge, and all round like that. And then we say we'll bung up the other one as well, and just really keep it working round. And then what we'll do, we'll leave that pooling in that one. And then we'll come back, and literally between the two, you can see it too well in there, but it's nice and white and glossy, and we'll keep rolling it round and round and round. We'll tip it out, we'll tip it back in, and we're going to do it like that. And then as a final thing, what we'll do is, once it's dry, we're going to dip it into Future, which is our clear gloss, to give it that nice shiny look, and it should, if there's any lumps and bumps, it should take care of all of that and get rid of it. Okay, the last thing we need to do with these intakes is just to make them a little bit nicer inside. So what we've got here is a pot of Future, or clear gloss, Johnson's Floor, whichever one you want to call it. So we just dip in both ends. Obviously it slides up and down the tube. Then all we're going to do is stand that on a piece of kitchen towel, paper. So whilst we've got various bits drying, this is probably one of the most complicated part of the kit. Now, the way that obviously it's tooled and engineered is the way that, you know, some of the parts seem odd ways of going together, and obviously you get multi-parts and various bits and pieces, and sometimes it just looks a lot more complicated than it really needs to be. But unfortunately, unless you want, obviously with curves and things like that, with the injections to be still square on, then they have to do obviously bits that sort of on with the sides and various bits and pieces like that. And obviously this is quite complicated because you've got the wheel wells in here. There's various vents and things that are finely detailed, and obviously they are on the side. So to do this, it's got quite an odd way of going together. Now, all the Hornets do this. Basically, if you're going to be building the Hasegawa Sea Hornets, they go together almost exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is, forget what the instructions tell you. I'm going to show you a different way to actually do it, and through, obviously I've done a few of these before, I find this the easiest way and the way to sort of get away without having to use filler and making better seams and things like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to put, if we get those to one side a moment, what we're going to do, instead of building it all together and then putting the actual in one like it would have you do on the instructions, what we're going to do is put it together in parts, and then when we're all together finished at the end, then we'll add bits to it. So our main thing, obviously the worry joint, is getting this side piece on to look all okay, and obviously getting it all to marry up in here. Now, if you take the parts, and you've obviously cleaned them up, as I've done, and put them in like this, they fit like a complete and utter glove. There is no joins, no need for filler, or anything. Yet if you build it and put it together, it will be a nightmare to get that in. So what I'll do is, we'll sort of do this in sections, but in here at the moment we've got a perfectly nice joint up here at the top with no need for filler or anything else like that. So we're going to take our glue. As you can see, it's a good fit. I'm not even holding on to it, that's how good a fit it is. Okay, and we're just going to pop liquid cement down into all these joints and gaps and bits and pieces like so. Just hold it in here. We'll just hold it for a sec, and that's it. Now rest assured, if you are going to do it via the instructions, you're going to have big gaps and lumps and bumps to deal with and other bits and pieces like that. But if you do it this way, the only problem we're going to have is at the rear, because this side part is actually probably 0.5 millimeter too short. But it's something I'll show you how to deal with. So we've got that one on there now. Okay, and that's good enough to hold at the moment. Now, obviously what we've got now is this inside part in this edge here. Now this is where you normally get the problem, because if you do it separately, you get a huge big gap appearing at the back. But if you do it now, and if we hold the right one, it might help. If you just slide that in, it fits and butts up very, very nicely in there and at the front, and it all fits quite a dream. Yeah, if you do it the other way, it tends to hang out and all the rest of it. Now I'm not going to glue that in place yet until that's totally dry. So whilst that is all working its magic, we'll just do the other side. As I say, if you're doing the Sea Hornet, the older version, it goes together basically the same. Apart from obviously you don't have any actual engine parts on that particular kit. But as you can see, when you're not using it, as I was saying, you know, it does make a difference. It clicks into position. We've got a little bit of movement on this front edge, but that's good. So we're just going to pop a bit of glue down there in like that, and then obviously we're just going to quite a generous quantity and let the capillary action pull itself and do its work. Okay, so these have just been on there just for a moment, just to dry. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fit the inside part of the actual air intakes. Now literally we're just going to slide them in and butt them up on the inside. Now as you can see, there again, we've got a perfect join in here. As I said before, if you do it the other way, you do get a gap. Now I'm not quite sure why it actually works this way, but if you put it together like this, you won't have a problem. So we just pop the other one in as well. So all you do is just literally slide it along and in they go. And it literally is a click fit. They go in there, they click, they lock in place, and that's it. So we're just going to do quite a generous quantity of glue, and it will let that weld up and take care of all the little gaps and bits as we go. That's it, just top bit in here. And there we go, and that's those in. Now the actual intakes, which obviously are still wet at the moment, they've got that clear gloss in there to shine them up. They will literally just slide fit into the back way, into the top there. But that's a quick, very, very fast and easy way of putting that together. I don't know if you can see that, but there's no gaps, there's no need for filler, there's no messing around or anything else like that going on in there. You know, you might have to just touch in a few little spots, like here, it's just got a little gap, but we're using the weld glue, it'll just pull it together, and all we'll do, we'll go after it and we'll just buff it all up and bring it up nice. But honestly, if you do it the other way, lots of trouble. Right, the other thing we can do whilst we're here, obviously being careful because this is all very, very wet, but you've got the holes inside. You've got two down the rear, just down in here, 1 and 2, they've got to come out, and there's a skid type for a vent back there, and obviously you've got the two big ones at the front. Now these big ones at the front here, I've lost you. These big ones at the front here, obviously a bit bigger than my drill bit, you'll have to make a bit bigger because that is going to actually hold, which we've already glued and got together here, the centre pylon which fits underneath. So if you open them up now, because really this is your last opportunity, so all I do is I roughly do it just like that. Obviously these two in here, 1 and 2. And then for the moment I'll just leave them like that, and then we'll open them up and clean them up when we actually come to it. Right, the other bit as well is obviously we've got this rear part here which just literally is a drop fit, he says, as it won't drop in. There we go, that's in there just like that, and obviously it makes the right width as well for the top one coming in. So all we'll do is just going to put a drop of glue just in there and let it weld itself in place, and that's basically it. Now we're all ready now for adding our forward fuselage, which is obviously going to come onto the front, and then we've got the top part, and now our wing tops have dried as well, so that's ready to come together. So what I'm going to do is we're going to leave it for a moment. We're going to get those engines put together and those air intakes, and I'll show you those, and we're going to get them fitted in, and then we can get the fuselage parts. Okay, so we've got the engine nozzles on the back there. As you can see, they came out with pretty much seamless and all singing, all dancing, so you can just about see the fans down the end there. Okay, so we're actually getting these in. All we do, obviously, because normally you would have glued these in, it's pretty straightforward. We're just going to slide these in just like this. Show you the best way. It's a bit of a tight thing, and just give it a little wiggle and it will just click straight in. And that's it, you're in, that's fine. Then if you look on the inside, you can then just make sure you're all squared up and all nice. And then you can stick a bit of glue just to run underneath. If you're using the thin like this, it'll find its way around there, rest assured. And just give it a bit of a rock and you'll feel it grip and bite, and that one's in. And then obviously we'll just do the same on this one as well. As I say, sometimes they slide in no problem at all, other times they need just a little bit of a wiggle to get them in there. And say plenty of glue, and then drop it on and let it just run itself round this side underneath, and you'll feel it bite in there. And there we go, that's those in now. So I don't know if you can see that underneath, but there we have them under there like that, looking pretty good. So we're just going to let those set for 1 second. Now, obviously, when we're putting on the forward fuselage, obviously, as I said before, it's a very complicated way of doing it. The biggest joins you want to worry about is obviously this one here, as it's going to join the underside under there, and the other one that's really noticeable is this one at the front here. If we just pop that there for a moment, if you test fit your cockpit tub on here, you might notice it's a little bit wide on there, or there may be a gap or something like that, or it's an awful joint. Now what we want to do is really try and make this one as best we can. If you take your file, keep it flat onto it like this, and just give it some strokes, you'll find, if you look carefully, just down in this corner here, there's a little tab. It's obviously where the machining and they've made the actual mould for it, and there's a little tab just there, and it looks a bit odd. So you just have to sand that off and make sure it's a nice flat edge, and then take this one here and give it a nice sand across the front as well. And then under the front, you've got these two pegs here at the front. Just give it a sand there as well, because there may be some raised area. And then bring it along to your area, and you can test fit and see what it's like. Now, if there's a huge gap or a bulge or something's going on or something's wrong, then obviously take it back and have a look. All of the ones I've built, I've always found this top part here is wider than the bottom. So the only option you've got is to try and splay this bottom part about. Now, I tried this last time and ended up with it having a bad join at the top. So in some ways, it's easier to leave this top part alone and pop it on, because what we'll do then is just we can rescribe down here, and with a bit of filler if required, or sanding and filling is hopefully the way we'll be able to do it, we can take care of the join, and we're left with pretty good join anyway. The major problem one is this one, which is saying down the back here, because that's an awful joint, and so far today I've never found a good way of actually doing it. All the ones I've built, they've always had that type of trouble. So anyway, onward and upward. What we'll do first is we're going to actually then attach the top fuselage here to the bottom. Now, it's a bit easier to flip this over on its roof to see it. Now, as you see, you've got this inside area in here, and the flatty bits go on top and will sit in. Now, this is one of those things, we're going to do it as dry fitting. We're going to pop it in, and you may need to just get your thumbs just in these wing roots and just to snuggle it in. And then what we'll do, we're just going to gently ease that all in around until we do it. Now, obviously you're looking for a nice, clean, flush, flat finish in here. On this side there's a step, so just needs a bit of a squeeze with your finger just to help that in, just to make a better join. As you can see at the back here, we've got perhaps a little join work to do in this area, but luckily it's also a panel line, so we can use that to our advantage. We'll weld it, then after when the weld's completely dry, the glue's dried, we can actually then go around and rescribe it without the need for filler. As long as it's flat and it's level, we'll be okay. So there we go, that's in there now. So what we'll do is we'll take this opportunity just to make sure, run your fingers around it, make sure we're all level and all okay, we're alright. So we're going to put a drop of glue, quite a lot, and we're just going to let the capillary action pull this off down this entire join here, and a touch on the inside. Remember, if you're using the glue, not to keep your brush hanging around over the paint, otherwise you'll melt the paint off. Quite a good blob just down in here, because what we're going to do, we're going to sand that all in anyway. Now I'm going to keep holding that just for a moment to hold this join, because we've got a picture perfect join there all the way along, because there's a slight line, we're going to use that as a panel line again. So we just hold that there. Then on the other side you might notice it pulls in, so that's why this side has to be dry before you start gluing on the other side, otherwise you'll pull that side off as you're doing the other way. Whilst that's doing, we're going to put a drop of glue just down in here. And we're going to put a big blob on the wing root as it joins the actual main fuselage, and that will weld us all together up there. Now I know I talk about welding, I'm just using the normal Tamiya extra thin glue, I'm not using anything special, it's just it's got a weld action, so I call it welding. So that's that. Okay, and we're just going to hold that in there. Now the next thing as well as we're going along is back here where the actual the flaps, because they're going to be dropped on this one, if they're up you wouldn't have to worry about it, but this here is always a nasty seam and will need some filler. We can't just weld this one up and get rid of it. Okay, so then what we'll do is we're going to put a drop just down in here and at the back, and I don't know if you saw that then, but the capillary action just whips that straight off. Okay, then we're just going to hold for a second so it bites. Now this edge here, this one here, is sticking out, so we're just going to give that a bit of a nudge with a pair of tweezers. Don't use your finger, as you say, otherwise you might get the glue under your fingernail and then it will run around and basically cause no end of trouble. So we're just going to hold that there to give it some time, just for a minute. Remember, only do one side, and we're going to take a rubber band and we're just going to just loop it over once, just here, just to pull this in and let this pull all in tight. And then what we can do, we can just nudge this a little bit more. So I don't know if you can see it, but this top line here disappears. This one in here we're going to take care of, but certainly the one back there we can't. Now what I've done, get your scissors or tweezers. You can measure the distance if you put your finger up against the back of the intake there and do it. Then if you stick your scissors in there and still touch, you can push out from the inside that little dent. Obviously I have to do tops and bottoms, and I'm trying to get you to show it. It's very hard, but as you can see, it's just pulled that out, and you'll have to go on top and bottom of that little one and making a very nice join that hopefully we're not going to have to touch too much. Tiny little bit of filler perhaps needed, but we're going to rescribe that and turn that into a panel line, and that's it. So that's quite a nice join. We'll just drop some more glue down like that, just along this edge, and we're just going to pop a bit in the middle here just to take care of that. And that's basically it. We're going to do the same with the other side when it's dry, but as you can see, you've got a gap running down this edge. Obviously we haven't here, that's all perfect, but we've got a gap. When it's all dry, we can actually pull this with our finger over a touch, put a rubber band around it, and when you squeeze both halves together, I don't know if you can see it disappearing there, but you see we've got a gap here, and then we'll put a rubber band right across here, and it will just pull it all in and keep it all nice. Okay, so what I've done, I've put some Squadron green putty in this seam here because it's pretty hard to lose that one, and just to make a perfect finish, I've actually put it on here. Now if you've got quite a nice join and you're not going to be too fussy over it, you don't really have to get in there too much with it, but obviously I want a perfect finish, so I'm going to do it. The other thing as well, if you've got your horizontal tails in there, just imagine this is one and it's level with it, obviously it would hide the line anyway, so you're not going to see it, but because I'm going to have mine slightly drooped, you'll be able to notice it a little bit more, so that's why I've done it. Okay, so what we're going to do, our usual sanding thing, we're going to keep our sanding stick square and flat and lightly sanding. Let the sander do the work. Don't be pulling down in there and scraping in there too much, because you're likely to just go over the top and you might not get a totally flat finish, and that's what we're after here. We're after a flat finish. So it doesn't even have to wear completely through the filler. As long as the filler is flat and smooth, that's exactly what we want. So we'll just give it a rub now. And we've got that, which is a very nice joint, and I'm very happy with that. And we can move on to the other ones. So I'm just going to clean up all the other ones. At the same time, when we were talking about doing these with the flaps at the back here, so you get little sink marks perhaps where the glue has melted a little bit of the plastic, and I got it on this here. So if I just sand it off, all you do, keeping it as safe flat as you can, and you should see and as you can see, there's a little line there, and that's where it actually melted down just a touch. It was only a little bit, but obviously, we're striving for a bit of perfection here. If you're not too worried about it, you're never really going to see it being upside down. So it's one of those areas you don't have to go overboard and worry about. If we just do this bit here, as you can see, we had a tiny little gap running down the side there, so we've done that one as well. And that's basically it. So I'm going to sand these off now.